Learn 26 different tools for managing these emotions. But before we begin, let's take a quick moment to briefly review the last session of world-class relationships for work and home.
In the last session, we wrapped up 16 pillars with the last two, forging a bond and nurturing your relationship. Now, just because they are the last two does not mean that they are the least important. These two pillars are not for the newlyweds or those that are just hanging out with someone to see if it'll work. Forging a bond with your partner is being intentional about your relationship and living through life's crucibles.
That's right. At this point in your relationship, there is no plan B. You've made up your mind that you're all in and you will spend the rest of your life with your loved one. This doesn't mean that it will be easy. As we learned in the last pillar, you have to continually put the work in. You have to work hard at keeping the flames burning. You need a plan of action to continue to nurture your relationship for many years to come.
Okay, so now that we have recapped, let's move on to session 1 of dealing with difficult emotions with your hosts, Alfonso and Judith.
Welcome to Dealing with Difficult Emotions. My name is Judith and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. It will be my pleasure to be your instructor for session 1 of this workshop. This is a powerful and beneficial course, which I hope and expect will be a meaningful experience for you and is also a lot of fun. I'm very excited about sharing this material with you as I believe it will change the way you view difficult and uncomfortable emotions such as anger. It will also change the amount of difficulty you experience as you begin to apply these tools, and the way you express these various emotions will also shift. You will learn about dealing with difficult emotions and 26 tools for managing them that will help you gain mastery over these emotions and others that you may have had difficulty with in the past. I am confident that this course will be very valuable for you. Let's go ahead and begin orienting ourselves to the materials in this course. You will have a Dealing with Difficult Emotions workbook. The workbook is an essential part of the course. You'll use it throughout every single one of our sessions, so make sure that you have it with you every single time you connect. Also, you will use it after class to do several homework assignments after each session that will help you take stock of things and enable you to become strengthened in your ability to deal with difficult emotions. This workbook will provide you with many learning opportunities and ways to focus your own thoughts. It also enables you to maintain whatever level of privacy you wish to have. Take the time to write your name in your copy now, and remember to keep it close and bring it with you every time you connect. Let's talk about the learning activities. In addition to the workbook exercises, the learning design will combine lecturettes, sharing with a partner, and also lots of opportunities for skill practice. There will also be, as I had been mentioning, homework assignments for you to complete after each class session, and these assignments will be very important to your gaining control over your emotions and developing confidence in the tools for dealing with them. We are hoping that you will find the ones that work for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Our goals. One of the main goals is really to provide you with a safe space in which you can look at your personal relationships with difficult emotions and find new ways of managing them. That is one of our main goals. We also want to learn what emotions truly are and why they can be so difficult to manage. And I want to normalize this piece because we all have difficulty with certain emotions. We want to help you gain mastery and allow you to learn to use anger in a meaningful way and to channel it, and also to allow you to gain confidence in a range of tools to manage other emotions, not just anger. And we'll walk you through what those other emotions are in just a moment. But once again, take the time, make sure that you have all of your materials ready, and let's go ahead and start the course. So, what are difficult emotions? Here's a list of some emotions you see as being difficult. We have anger, fear, rage, anxiety, discomfort, disappointment, grief, stress, trauma, pain, loss, regret, sadness, isolation, loneliness, despair, and one of the most painful and uncomfortable emotions, shame. These are often categorized as difficult emotions. I do want to make a distinction. Emotions are not good, they're not bad. That is why we use the word difficult or uncomfortable. Emotions are here to serve a purpose. They're here as a compass, and they point to something in our environment that is requiring our attention. So we want to make sure that we eliminate the word bad from our vocabulary when we are referring to them. We simply want to honor that they are difficult to manage, that they can be uncomfortable to experience, but they're here to serve a purpose. And we'll walk you through some of those aspects throughout the course. Let's talk about emotions and self-management. When we think about what adults have to manage in their lives, there is a long list of many things. Here are some examples of the kinds of things that adults are expected to manage in their day-to-day lives. Our food intake, exercise, health in general, income, money, sexuality, cleanliness like bathing, teeth, nails, household cleanliness as well, upkeep of the home, children, job, satisfaction out of life. I'm exhausted just reading that list. Yes, adults are expected to manage many, many things. And we add to this list the management of our emotions. And as we said earlier, anger is for many people one of the most difficult emotions to get good at managing. So we will be using anger as a foundational example to manage some of the other difficult or challenging emotions. To put this in perspective, all of this falls under the domain of adulthood. No one expects children to be good at managing much of anything. This is something that takes years to master. Self-management skills develop as we get older and mature, but it is also something that requires intentionality and focus, especially if these skills were not taught to us as children. Maturity comes at different rates for different people, and experiences and opportunities are also connected to that. Some people get really good at managing their careers right away, but lag behind in their personal relationships. Other people get good at having satisfying friendships, but they're not so good at managing their sexuality or their money or whatever. Each of these areas possess a separate challenge for all of us as we become adults. Each of us succeeds at some of these areas and struggles a little bit more with others. This course will focus on dealing with difficult emotions, as this is one of the areas of self-management that is especially challenging for many people. Getting good at managing difficult emotions, at developing a sense of mastery over them, will be beneficial in helping you develop a stronger sense of self-esteem and confidence in yourself as an adult and as a worthwhile human being. To do this, a primary activity of this course will be to give you the opportunity to try out a large number of tools. So at the end of the course, you have many options that will give you greater mastery when dealing with difficult emotions. When does anger or when does a difficult emotion become a problem? Well, specifically, anger becomes a problem when it is felt too intensely, too frequently, when it boils over unexpectedly or is expressed inappropriately. Feeling it too intensely or frequently places extreme physical strain on the body. During prolonged and frequent episodes of anger, certain parts of the nervous system become highly activated. As a result, your blood pressure and heart rate can increase and stay elevated for a long time. This stress on the body may produce many different health problems such as hypertension, heart disease, and reduced system efficiency. So from a health standpoint, avoiding physical illness is an important motivation for being able to manage your anger successfully. Another reason to control our difficult emotions is the negative consequences that result from expressing them inappropriately. For example, in the extreme, anger may lead to violence or physical aggression that can result in many negative consequences. So, what are some of the negative consequences that can come from this physical aggression or violence? We all know these, right? These can include arrest, incarceration, physical injury, damage or loss of family relationships, replacement, costs for the things becoming broken, being terminated from our jobs or from needed services. But it also carries more difficult emotions, such as feeling guilt, shame, or regret. Meanwhile, even when anger does not lead to violence, the inappropriate expression of anger, such as verbal abuse or intimidating or threatening behavior, generally results in negative consequences. Once again, for example, it is likely that others will develop fear, resentment, and lack of trust towards someone who subjects them to angry outbursts. This can cause emotional alienation from people you care deeply about, including family members, friends, and coworkers. So what are some of the payoffs of anger? We may at times ask the question, does anger have some value? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. Anger is a legitimate feeling that we all have from time to time. All behavior, including anger, is designed to meet a need. Anger can be very useful as an alert that signals and tells us that an important need is not getting met. That helps you realize that it might be appropriate for you to take some action that will help you get your needs met in any given situation. With this understanding about the purpose of behavior, let's look at anger from that perspective. What are some of the payoffs? One way that anger pays off is as a motivation to take action to handle something that you perceive as being unfair, threatening, or damaging to you. Another payoff is the release of tension that occurs when you lose your temper and act upon your anger. That can be very satisfying because emotions are a true physiological process that require the production of adrenaline and cortisol in our bodies. And when we act upon it, it does provide a sense of release as we are using those hormones, expending that energy, and our body, that physiological process, has now been served. However, if you act aggressively, although you may feel better after an angry outbursts, others may end up feeling worse. And so the cycle continues, and you will once again be pumped with your bloodstream full of cortisol and adrenaline. Another payoff of anger is that you get to feel powerful in the face of a threatening situation. This can feel very satisfying. Instead of feeling weak and damaged, you get to feel powerful. So that can be very attractive. And another way that anger can pay off is in being able to manipulate and control others through aggressive and intimidating behavior. There can be serious problems with this, of course, when others comply with your demands only because they fear your threats of violence. What are some of the negative consequences of anger? We looked at the payoffs, but the reality is there are also negative consequences. Many times, anger leads to these negative consequences, and in many cases, the payoffs are far outweighed by the negative ones. For example, a father who persuades his children to comply with his demands by using an angry tone of voice and threatening gestures every single time will see that these behaviors imply to the children that they will receive physical harm if they are not obedient. The immediate payoff for the father is that the children obey his commands. The long-term consequences, however, may be that the children learn to fear or dislike him and become emotionally distant and guarded from him. As they grow older, they may avoid contact or refuse to see him altogether. Let's explore the dynamics of anger even more in depth. Let's start with the emotions flow chart, and you have this in your workbook. Then we'll look at how and when you have the opportunity to use some tools that impact how you experience the difficult emotions. We're going to talk about preventive tools, as well as the factors that determine health. And then we will start to look at other tools for dealing with difficult emotions that you can use when you're actually experiencing the emotion, not just preventive ones. These are called immediate tools. I'd like you to turn to page 4 in your workbook and take a look at the emotions flow chart, and we'll walk you through together. And once again, this is page 4 of the workbook. Starting at the top of this page is a list of events that occur. The first is a picture of you just going about living your life. Then the next thing we see on the left is a stimulus, which is something happening that is triggering for you. Then, at the end of the left column, after many other things take place, we have your response to the stimulus that occurred. In between, you will see that there are many events that take place within you and many places where you can have an impact on the feelings you experience and how you behave in response to those feelings, and how you deal with the triggering event or the stimulus. This realization is very important because no one is inevitably triggered into having a violent response to a stimulus. And there are many, many things that you can do that will give you control and change the way your body perceives the stimulus. These are called preventive tools, which are very exciting and very important for the work that we will do. And there are also many things that you can do that will give you the capacity to manage your response to the stimulus. Those other tools are called immediate tools, which are the ones you can use when you're actually feeling angry or feeling a difficult emotion in the moment. We are going to be looking at all of these tools in the course so you can put together a toolbox for dealing with difficult emotions that works for you. So on the chart, let's look now at you at the top of the page and see to the box at the right that there are many preventive tools you can use that will change the way you respond to a stimulus you receive. These preventive tools are extremely important because they make changes in you that make it very much easier to handle triggering situations. If something doesn't impact you with as much intensity as it used to, then it is much easier for you to handle. So the 13 preventive tools are very powerful ones, and they include the state of health or illness, awareness of triggers, emotions thermometer and emotions log, muscle relaxation, feeling words vocabulary, deep breathing, imagining a beautiful place, emotions journal, talking with a friend, talking with a therapist, positive self-talk, communication, and conflict resolution skills. These preventive tools are so beneficial that you will want to use many of them in dealing with difficult emotions. We will review each one of them. Next, you will then see the stimulus that occurs. Something impacts you, and in this case, it's a stimulus that you perceive as threatening. It could be any number of different kinds of things. What are some examples of a stimulus that you might perceive as threatening? Well, here are some. Maybe your spouse criticizes you, or your ride to an appointment didn't show up, so you're going to be late, etc. Let's go ahead and take a moment to just consider and process some of these things so that we understand what a stimulus is. Remember, a stimulus is anything that triggers an alarm in you. It doesn't necessarily mean that what is a trigger for you is a trigger for someone else. So take a moment and consider, what are your individual triggers? Going down from there, you see that the stimulus starts to engage with your body. This happens within a fraction of a second, and this is where that physiological process that I discussed a moment ago begins, where we do get pumped through our bloodstream with different hormones, and some of these can be painful to experience, such as adrenaline and cortisol. Let's go ahead and start processing number one, the state of our mental and physical health. The first tool has to do with what really is happening within us at a very physiological level. What we see from this box at the right is that your state of health has a true impact on how you respond to any given stimulus, as you see in the second gray box as well. In this course, we are not going to be examining the different biopsychosocial factors that determine health, but we are going to cover some basics. There are 4 biological health determinants, which are nutrition, sleep, exercise, and stress. Just think for a moment about someone who hasn't slept for 3 days and he's under enormous amounts of stress, eating nothing but coffee and donuts and smoking lots and lots of cigarettes. Imagine a scenario where a loud siren starts up and doesn't stop. It just shrieks and shrieks on and on. How is this sleepless, stressed out, over-caffeinated person going to react to that loud siren blaring? Of course, most likely he's going to be triggered. This might be very irritating, upsetting, and very difficult to manage for someone in that state. This person's health, which has been damaged by bad nutrition, lots of stress, no sleep, etc., causes him to respond to the stimulus with much greater agitation than if he had slept well, eaten healthy food, felt good in his body, etc. Let me give you a different scenario. How is this sleepless, stressed out, over-caffeinated individual going to react to a child who won't stop screaming in the middle of the grocery store? Or maybe to a newborn. So you can see from this simple example that your state of health is a factor in how you react to stimuli. Therefore, The first tool for dealing effectively with difficult emotions is the state of your health, and this is an important one for your toolbox because the nutritional quality of the foods you eat, how well you sleep, your ongoing level of exercise, and how effectively you deal with stress are things that you do have some amount of control over. Then this helps you see some things you can do to impact your anger and other uncomfortable emotions. This is important information that is very much worth thinking about, as it's the first place in the chain of events where you can have an impact on what happens. The psychological factors that determine health are also very interesting, and these you probably haven't heard about quite so much as the biological ones that we just covered. The psychological ones are coping styles. As you can imagine, some ways of coping with stress are more effective than others. So it is very beneficial to learn effective coping techniques. One of the things that I want to point out is that we are always coping. It is whether we are using effective coping skills that makes the difference. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the following segments. Self-efficacy. This is a concept that describes your belief in your ability to organize and carry out action required to manage situations that you face. Your level of self-efficacy impacts your emotional response to stressful situations as well. We also have self-esteem, the third psychological health determinant. This is how you regard yourself, the extent to which you see yourself as capable and worthwhile. Self-esteem impacts choices and performance, and there are ways you can improve your self-esteem so that this plays into managing your anger. I do want to point out a distinction between self-efficacy and self-esteem. Self-efficacy is when you believe you can do something really well, such as a famous athlete knowing that they can go and play a game and succeed and win it for their team. It is different to self-esteem. That same athlete that feels very capable and skilled doesn't necessarily mean that he has a good self-esteem. At the same time that he's feeling very skilled in one area of his life, there might be struggles in their sense of feeling worthy and feeling worthwhile. Another example is a famous actor who knows they are a master of their craft and they can deliver a wonderful performance. But once those cameras are off, they are struggling once again in their sense of self-worth. There is a difference. Both are important. And so if we are struggling in one area or the other, it is important to understand the distinction so that we know how to approach and what areas to work on. We also have hardiness. This is your pattern of attitudes and skills that, despite stressful circumstances, enhance performance, morale, and stamina. Do you have someone in your life that no matter how much they have faced, they continue to press forward and their attitude just seems hardy? This is what we are referring to. For all of these psychological factors, there are steps you can take to improve them, which will impact how you process stressful circumstances. And you can read on each of these topics from library books, online resources, or other mental health resources you have access to. Any work you can do to strengthen your psychological health is very worthwhile and is something that we will encourage you to do throughout this course. Now let's take a look at social health determinants. They fall into two categories: relationship stability and the amount of social support you have in your life. This includes both your present and past relationships, how loving and supportive they are, or how painful and damaging they were. Let's take a look at communication skills. These are very important skills for being able to create healthy and caring long-term relationships. And these are the communication skills that you learn in raising world-class kids or world-class relationships for work and home. These skills include being able to confront non-blamefully so you can increase the chances of the other person responding to your needs in a caring way. Additionally, your conflict resolution skills that you learn in these courses are very important for getting your needs met in all of your relationships. As the state of your health plays an important role in your response to anger-provoking stimuli, I will be asking you to be aware of and make a record of these factors in your homework every week. Back to the left side of the emotions flowchart, we see that all of these preventive tools, including the state of your health, impact the chemicals in your body, the neurotransmitters that get activated. Then what happens next is that an emotion is generated, and the way you experience that emotion is a feeling. Remember, all of this happens very fast, within a matter of seconds generally. To the right of the feeling is another box, which shows you that this is also a place where you can have an impact on what happens. Here is where we will begin to introduce more tools. Let's take a look now at immediate tools for dealing with difficult emotions. We are going to be looking at a lot of them in this course, and I'll want you to gain experience with all of them so you can ultimately decide which one of these you will want to add to your personal toolbox. Having access to these tools will help develop your self-management capacity. Being able to manage yourself effectively, especially at times of stress, is one of the most important characteristics of success. The tools you learn in this course will increase your success in being able to manage yourself during times of stress, such as when your anger has been triggered. These self-management tools you can use once your anger or other difficult emotions have been triggered are called immediate tools because you can, as the name implies, use them immediately in the moment. And they include feeling words vocabulary, labeling and taking responsibility for feelings, timeouts, emotions log, thought stopping, and counting to 10. We also have drinking some water, listening to soothing music, exercise, deep breathing, positive self-talk, communication, and conflict resolution skills. Let's go back to the emotions flowchart. What I want you all to notice from this flowchart we looked at earlier is all the different opportunities there are to change how you respond to a stimulus before you actually respond to it. The right-hand side of the page lists the options you have all along the way that will help you respond differently to a stressful situation and that equip you to avoid a violent reaction to the stimulus. This is a very important point. There is a big difference between an angry reaction to a stimulus and a violent reaction to it. An angry reaction to a stimulus is fine. Anger is normal, and you have a right to feel angry at times. Everybody does, to one extent or another. A violent reaction, a threatening one, however, will cause all kinds of problems for your life and often for others that you love. Let's look at a quote from Dr. Viktor Frankl, a neurologist and psychologist that survived the Holocaust. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What we see from this powerful quote and flow chart is that there are intervention points. Specifically in our flow chart, we identify three intervention points that allow us to intervene and decide how we will respond. Number 1, before the stimulus is perceived. Number 2, as the feeling is being experienced. And number 3, after the feeling is experienced. Note that all of these intervention points occur before you need to respond to the stimulus. What you will learn in this course are 24 powerful tools for dealing with threatening stimuli so that you can increase your capacity to respond to them in ways that don't damage your life or the lives of others. Tools you know work for you will help you keep your emotional responses to a level 5 or lower. They will help you reduce the risk of causing damage to your life and those around you. There are 3 assignments for you to complete before the next class. Number 1, events that sometimes push my buttons, and this is something that you can find in your workbook. The directions for this exercise are on pages 4 through 5, and it will give you an opportunity to look at the kinds of events that trigger your anger. We all have experienced events that have pushed our buttons, and it's helpful to get in touch with the kinds of situations where we are most vulnerable to becoming angry. For each item in the list, check the box if you are aware that an occurrence of this type has pushed your buttons. Then write in a brief description of a time that this has happened to you. Review list on page 6 of the workbook as well. This is titled Some Consequences of Not Dealing Well with Difficult Emotions. This is a sobering list of the kinds of damage to your life and to the lives of others you care about that can result from not having effective tools to control your anger and manage other difficult emotions. And finally, assignment number 3. After you have reviewed this list, do the exercise on the next page, page 7, called What It Has Cost Me to Not Have Had a Toolbox for Dealing with Difficult Emotions. This is also a sobering exercise, but one that I think you will find very valuable in getting in touch with the damage that has occurred in your life because of uncontrolled anger, as this will serve as an important source of information for change. Remember, dealing with difficult emotions is all about growth and about learning some new tools that can change how you experience anger and other difficult emotions that will enable you to manage them more successfully. I want you to be in full touch with your motivation for learning these tools and bringing them into your daily life. So these exercises will be very valuable to you in this way.
Woo! Heavy stuff. But now you see what I mean, right? About this being critical for the sake of being a better couple.
In the first session of dealing with difficult emotions, we define what we mean by difficult emotions. These are emotions that at one point or other, we've all experienced. Things like trauma, pain, loss, anxiety, anger, etc. And for many, the pandemic only made these feelings more overwhelming.
We then talked about the emotions flow chart and spent some time learning how our emotions flow. We then listed all of the tools that you will learn in this workshop that will help you prevent and or manage these emotions.
I hope that you're able to review what you learned in this session before the next one. Till next time.